Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Leadership Book of the Month. I'm Kelly Byrnes. Bret and Dave, welcome. Good to see you both for our last one of 2023.
Hey, everybody. Good to see y'all.
Hi.
Great way to end the year. And this is our 25th one of some combination of all of us. So it's pretty exciting. I will, do you want to take a minute and do introductions?
Good.
All right, Bret, you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Bret Getzel. I like to say that I'm a lifelong learner and now 32 years in the protein industry and got served in all kinds of different facets of the supply chain. Last 9 is at the VP and the C-suite level. So lots of stuff to share.
Yay. And Dave?
Dave Lingerfelt, educator, consultant, just having a lot of fun. Happy to be here and looking forward to chatting with everybody today.
And we all know each other from Rockhurst University, where Dave is a full professor. I'm an adjunct professor and alum. And Bret was in one of my classes and is an alum and in the MBA program, and came in as a guest speaker and had your daughter bring in a big pile of books. And from
That's
there,
right.
I started doing these a couple months before, but was doing them by myself. And when you and your daughter hauled in 100 books, I said, maybe that's a guy that would want to talk about leadership books.
That's
and here
right.
we are. And
Guilty.
so our intention is every month to share a book that we've read that month, and we read more than these each month, but to share something so leaders of tomorrow are investing in themselves today, and we can help with that investment and deliver some nuggets from our experience as well. Well, let's do a little update. So Dave, do you want to do an update?
Yeah, so here we are. We find ourselves once again winding down another semester, and it has been a busy one. So been good there. Been enjoying some milder weather that we would normally see a little rougher in December. So that's been kind of nice. So yeah, kind of the topic I might have mentioned it last month, kind of on everybody's mind in the education circuit, is this behemoth known as AI and what role it plays. And some people have been slower to realize that it's not going away. So we can spend as much effort as we want fighting it, but I think we're better off to embrace that. Not everybody is in my camp, and that's okay. So that's been what's consuming us as educators, and will likely consume us into the next semesters to come as well. So,
did I tell you about the Kansas City AI Club?
Yeah, I think you did mention that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and we have we just booked our January one for the January 16th. More details coming soon, but you can join the LinkedIn group, or I think it's kansascity.ai to get access to the club. So come on in. The water's warm and we're doing cool stuff. So anybody's welcome to come in. So thanks a lot, Dave. Bret, how about you? What's your update for the month?
Yeah, I got a couple things for you. So Kelly talked a little bit about the number of books in our series, is what I call it, and how we met. The thing I wanted to stay with was the theme of longevity and consistency. So obviously, to get through 25 books, as Kelly said, we've been at this a little while. So I've spoken about the book club business and mentioned within here, we call it the Team Member Development Initiative. And it's not near as unique as I thought. And remember, I think I talked about the Kansas City Business Journal did a profile on the company called The Big Biscuit. Theirs is every Thursday morning. It's a little 20-minute get-together. And this month, we're doing The Go-Giver by Bob Berg and John Mann. It's a kind of a thin red book, but the whole theme of it is reciprocity. And typically, I've done a Trello board where you get on there, kind of a question and answer thing. And I flipped it the last month just to try to get a little more participation to MS Teams. And for whatever reason, I just wasn't getting the traction that I wanted. So I had a lady I was visiting with her and said, hey, a little disappointed in what I'm getting here for the Go-Giver in terms of interaction. And she said, hey, right now I'm focused on getting Christmas gifts bought, buying food, planning the menu, where everybody's going to sleep and eat. And I thought, there's some truth in that, but what's the point? And what I kind of landed on is, we all get the same 24 hours a day, the same 7 days a week. It's what we do with those. And I started to reflect on all of that. And there's a certain level of discipline and accountability. And I thought to myself, you know what, we're coming up on the beginning of the year where people do an assessment or a catalog of what they got done this last year, and they start to plan what they're going to do next year. I have 5 personal pillars that I kind of categorize all of that into. But where am I going with the thread? And the thread is about accountability. Dave and Kelly, as my partners in this, kind of keep me accountable, right? And a high five to both of you for keeping me here. And it would be really, really easy for me to mail it in each month and say, you know what, I'll get to that book at another time. But by knowing that there's a deadline approaching, that, hey, you know what, we're going to get on the podcast and we're going to talk about it, you know what, it keeps me accountable. So kind of interesting there. Another update here, and I thought this was kind of interesting. Neutron Jack Welch, big fan of that guy, wrong, right, or different. I know everybody kind of falls on either side of the fence. He's kind of a polarizing figure, but he made the statement, and I love this one. Not a fan, I knew it. Yeah, he said, you know, before you were a leader, success is all about growing yourself. Once you're a leader, success is all about growing others. So simple enough, and probably pretty true. I think we can all agree on that. So what's the case in point? I got a call a month ago by a direct report of mine, and he said, hey, you know, I've been at the company for now 7 years. I worked for you for 5, and I'm just thinking that my time here has run its course, and I'd really like to do something different. I said, you know, I'll support you any way I can. And what's the point? The point here is, when he worked for me, he said, one day I want your job. And, you know, as a leader, you can be threatened by that. You can embrace it. And I said, hey, you know what, game on. If you can have my job, that means I'm going someplace else, either up or out, but I'm going. So let's get ready. And so what I recommended to him, Harvard Business Review has a book set about finance for managers, income statements, balance sheets, statements of cash flow, budgeting, planning, everything that you'd really want to know from a finance lens at kind of a C-suite level. He bought the books, and for the next 6 months, you know, we'd meet kind of off the clock and just discuss all of the concepts. So he called me and he said, had I not done those books, I would have never gotten the job. He got the job, and the job is a general manager of a distribution facility with the promise or the possibility of moving up into a division president here probably within a year. So again, the idea of, hey, you know what, you get validated by, I call it a coaching tree, right? There's a lot of different coaches in the NFL. Yeah. Kind of point to all the coaches that they train. So let's tie this back to the book. And I love these little quotes that Spaulding threw in. I picked this one out and said, hey, Eleanor Roosevelt said, a good leader inspires people to have confidence in the leader. A great leader inspires people to have confidence in themselves. So yeah. Those are my updates from this month. Kelly, back to you.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. I'm going to give updates that tie into your updates. So the end of the year and all of those things. So I'm going to send my newsletter, my regular email out next week. So if anybody, so people that aren't watching this live, you could still sign up for it. But if you go to the website, voyagecg.com, you can sign up. It's going to include a reflection for you to use to look back on this year. And then the first of January, I'll send one that will be for anticipating of the new year. And then that also ties in with the book that I released this year, the workbook of My Fulfilling Life, How to Create My Fulfilling Life. So if anybody would like that, you can send me a DM and I'll send that to you, or I'll put the link to that in the comments. And then my other one, since you brought up discipline, I have it handy here. A few months ago, we read Jocko Willnick's book. And so I picked up another one of his. Look how mean he looks, though. But look at the title, Discipline Equals Freedom, a field manual. And he looks mean. And I felt like he was like yelling at me when I was reading the book. And it's you can see it's like the old fashioned font and black pages with white letters. I'm sure every publisher would say, don't do a book like this. Like it goes against all the things. But he, look, I just flipped it open to don't negotiate with weakness. And so it was to me a reminder of you have to have the discipline to do the things it takes for you to be the person you want to be.
Absolutely. And so
just cross your fingers and hope you're that person. It's probably not going to be that way because life happens. So that's what I got out of the book. And I liked it. I ended up liking it in the end, even though I felt like it was yelling at me a few times. Don't eat that donut. There was a lot of donuts. Yeah. And it wasn't only about food or nutrition, but because leaders, we have to take care of ourselves so we're able to take care of others. It does cover a lot of that. And one of the most detailed sections was about a workout. And he gives like I forgot what the name was, but like the basic and then more 4 levels of very detailed for a workout that you can do. So yeah, interesting. Some of it needed equipment, but not that much. So getting in the groove of all those things as I assess this year and get ready for cool things for next year.
There you go.
Yep. So that is all of our updates. So let's get to this book. We ended the year on, you know what, when I picked this book, I thought it was going to be kind of on a light note because it's full of stories. It's really easy to read. The Gift of Influence. Creating Life-Changing and Lasting Impact in Your Everyday Interactions by Tommy Spaulding. But as I reflected on the stories, it was, there was more beef to it in the reflection, I think. It wasn't full of research and models and some of those more heavier books that we do, but there was some good stuff in the reflection, I think. But let me tell everybody about the book and about the author. So this book came out in 2022. We picked it because influence is key for leaders. And the whole thing about leaders, to be a leader, you have to have followers or you're not really a leader. The author is an interesting person. He graduated high school in the late 80s. He was an Eagle Scout and senior class president of high school. In college, he went to East Carolina University. Are you hearing my dog bark? I'm so sorry. My husband is not home, and I put the gate up thinking that would be useful. In just a moment, I'll go take the gate down. And hopefully we'll stop that. So sorry about that. He got his degree in political science in college, but he was named senior class president, and he was the head of 12 different organizations during college. So he was asked to speak at commencement. So back then it was kind of like you get involved in everything was the way to graduate. He has an MBA from Bond University, was a Rotary Ambassador Scholar, has an MA from Regis University in nonprofit management. So in his career, he started out in sales for IBM, and then he shares throughout the book that he was a member of the Japan Exchange. I don't know if he talked about this in the book. Japan Exchange and Teaching Program, where he worked with the staff of the 1988 Winter Olympics in Nagano, Japan. I thought that was pretty interesting. He's done several different things, but after IBM, he was named, a director of corporate affiliates for Up With People, and he became the CEO of that organization. I think he worked there, left, came back, and then he talks about his experience there in this book, so I won't steal that in case it's one of your favorite stories. But he left there to start his own leadership program, the leadership organization, a nonprofit, Spaulding Companies, and a for-profit company. The nonprofit is Spaulding Leadership Institute, and then it's under the umbrella of a for-profit company. So, and they focus on consulting, speaking, and writing and leadership programs. So all kinds of things. We're kind of in a similar wheelhouse with my business and Voyage. But so for this month, the Gift of Influence, he breaks it down into 3 I's. So the influence the 3 things that lead up to influence are interest, investment, and intention. And so we thought for our conversation today that we would each share our favorite story from the book. So let's take a turn and we'll each share one. And then if we have another, I had trouble picking just one. So after we each take a minute and share one, if you want to share another one, you can. And then we thought after that, we'll share what our favorite book of 2023 was and our reason for that. So Bret, do you want to go first and share your favorite story from this one?
Sure. So, I made a note here. Everyone's got their own style of how they read a book. Kelly shared how she tabs everything, and she shares her book there up on the screen, and it's full of tabs. I'm a dog-eared guy, right? So I go back through, and if there's something there that really jumped out at me. I know Dave's mentioned he's an audio guy, and as I was preparing, I thought, how does an audio person tab or dog ear? So I'm going to lob that question up as a fly ball to Dave here. How do you actually do that? That'd be interesting to know.
Being a tech guy, I actually have the first iteration of the Amazon Alexa device in my vehicle. So I can control everything with voice command. So if I hear a point of interest, I actually ask it to stop narration, and I do an audio clip where I capture what's important. So great question.
I didn't even know you could do that. I learned something.
Yeah.
And I knew Dave, being a tech guy, would have an answer. So cool. So for everybody that's listening and does audiobooks, you might have learned something there. High five to Dave. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been the thing that it really got me started with that is, I have about a 35-minute commute to the office. I know some people commute even longer, some less, but I don't know about you guys, but I always have those, especially on the way into the office, I always have those moments of clarity of I need to remember to do this or that. And inevitably, right, you get to the parking garage, you make your way in, you're getting your coffee, you have 7 to 10 interactions on the way to your office. And by the time you sit down, you go, what was I supposed to do?
Of course.
So I also capture my to-do list that way as well. So usually I'm driving into the office every morning, having dialogue with my smart device in the car.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. So, and I made a note here. Kelly suggested that we write down our favorite spots, and so I thought that this book was kind of what I call an easy lift. I simply reviewed the pages that I had dog-eared, and Spaulding quoted his wife, and apparently his wife's pretty bright because I like her quote. And she said, doing what you say is more important than saying what you do. And as I reflected on that particular quote, I thought, you can take that a lot of different directions. And what resonated with me was that if we reflect back on this idea, again, we talked a little earlier about accountability, and then we think about all the leaders that we've either worked for or worked with who've made these broad, bold statements, big promises, and they never materialized. They just never happened. They never followed through. And I think there's employees, team members, associates, whatever you want to call, that develop this reputation or this lack of credibility. And if you think about all the emphasis that Spaulding puts in the book about personal relationships, and he really has an entire chapter at the end that's all about quality relationships and personal relationships. I started to think, well, what kind of a relationship does a leader have that, going back to his wife's statement, what you say is more important than saying what you do. You really have to follow through. And then he's even got another section in his book that he says, own your own words. I think it's own your words how he does it. And all of those things kind of wove together for me. And I just really started to reflect and say, hey, use your words economically, sparingly. Sometimes less is more. Really focus on what you say and follow through. And I'm a believer, that we're a product of our experiences and our mentors. And then I started to tie that to Indra Nooyi's book about all the superior people that she had worked for and how she became a product of that. And it kind of all made sense. And I kept going back to that quote again of, it's more important to say what you do than do what you say. So, and then I tied that all out to say that influences your credibility, your emotional bank account, all those different relations you have. So my takeaway and closing point here in saying this is, hey, be observant of yourself, right? Have a high level of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and then also be mindful of the people you work with and the level of credibility they have, both inner company as well as external or out of the company, based on what they say. In other words, follow through on what you say, own what you're going to do, right? But know that your words really have a lot of meaning.
Yeah, I love that. And that whole section hit home to me too. And of course, I think everybody thinks we do that we honor our commitments, that we do what we say we're going to do. But in reading this, I reflected and I realized where I fall short goes back to what you said, or no, what Dave was talking about in the car. I think I would say, I'll follow up with you, or I'll email you to set up a time. But I'm saying that in passing at the end of another meeting, going into something, and then I don't write it down. And by the time
Spaulding even talks about people do that because it's a habit and they just feel that that's a comfortable closing statement, but they really never have any intentions of following through. They just, that's how I always end an engagement or end a conversation. So, it's kind of interesting. He also talked a little bit about the statistics in longevity, how long people live, again, based on those quality of relationships. So again, if you don't do what you say, right, then you ask yourself, what am I really saying about the quality of my relationships? And it kind of all ties together. And I tried to pick out one chapter, but as I started to prepare and think about this, I really pulled comments and thoughts and concepts from about 3 different chapters.
Well, we're going to give you extra credit for that.
Right,
Dave and I are in grading mode at the end of our semester.
There's a good joke for everybody's in the teacher education mode.
Yeah, that was good. I think in my case, it's more, my take home is to be more cognizant when I make a commitment, or I say I'm going to follow up, or I'll send that to you. And I'm not saying it to be flippant or float off, but I need to write it down. So yeah, too many things. So yeah, Dave, you want to comment on that? You ready to share yours?
Yeah, so just a comment, that I can jump into mine. Bret, you nailed it. If you remember last month, we said, what was, kind of one more, thing we would add, and mine was, actions over words, so let your actions kind of do the talking for you. So I love that Spaulding hit on that as well. And I've been guilty of it as well. And, one that resonated with me just, 6 months ago, I was having lunch with an old colleague, and we haven't worked together in over a decade, but we have common interests. We've helped each other on various things, and we've done fairly well of staying in touch on the regular. And as we were wrapping up lunch a few months ago, she goes, "We need to get together in 3 months, next quarter." And I said, "Okay, that sounds great." And she immediately grabbed her phone and set a reminder, and said, "Hey, Siri, remind me to reach out to Dave in 3 months and schedule lunch." And on the nose, I get an email from her in 3 months that says, "Hey, we're going to do lunch again." So I was like, "Oh, bravo. I could take a page out of that book for sure." So we could all do it there. So I love that point. In the book, the one that really resonated with me was from part 2, talking about interest, when he said everyone has a story, and everyone is usually willing to share that story if you ask in an authentic way. And I think everybody would agree they could probably do a little bit better with that. Unfortunately, we've gotten into this society where we're in such a freaking hurry to do everything, myself included, that sometimes we don't take that opportunity to get to know people, and get to know people that we work with or interact with all the time. And while it's incredibly simple, I didn't realize how impactful it was. One of our favorite family watering holes that we go to at least once a week. The lady that busses the tables. She always has a smile on her face, and she very nicely comes by the table and starts to clear, dirty plates or whatever. And it was very obvious that English was probably not her first language, but we, over the years, kind of learned how she could converse and interact with us. And over the years, we've gotten to know her very well. And she makes a point of stopping at our table every time we're in the restaurant. And it was over a year ago. She said, "You guys are one of the few people that have actually gotten to know me and asked, do I have kids, and how are my kids doing? And that really means a lot to me." And I, kind of took that as an opportunity with my 13-year-old. I said, "Look, this didn't cost us a thing other than a few minutes of our time to genuinely get to know this lady and the impact that it had on her. And now she makes a point of stopping at our table every single time we're in the restaurant." So kind of my thing into the new year, to try and be even better about that, and getting to know those stories, and truly getting to know people a little bit better. They all have something they can teach you. So it's always good to kind of tap into that when you can. So I thought you did a really good job of talking about that.
Nice. I like your.
I want to jump out here, because you're going to go with your point. My second point, Dave, was that exact thing. I'm sitting here listening to you going, "Oh my gosh, there's all kinds of stuff in the book."
Yeah.
And right, we picked the same points. That's amazing. I want Kelly to go, and then I'm going to follow on to your point here, because it's similar but different. So, but I'm sitting here just kind of chuckling under my breath, going, "Man, are we wired alike? Do we think that much the same?" High five on that. I love that point.
I love that point at the end too, about it's not just be nice to people because it helps them. That's the right thing to do. That's who you are. And you get something out of getting to know other people. They have things of value. They are valuable. I had, but I'm wrapped up in the things I'm doing. I'm out running errands. I was at Walmart a couple months ago, and I saw a lady wandering in the parking lot, and it was clear she couldn't find her car. And I'm sure we've all been in a situation like that. But I was, in a hurry. And then I get to my car and I put my stuff down in and taking my cart to the thing. And I looked for her and I thought, I'm just going to look and see if she's close to me, I'll go help her. Like, come on. If she's close, I have like criteria of I'm going to go help someone. So she wasn't close to me, but I did go over and I asked her, could I help you? Could I help you find your car? And she like physically kind of melted into me sort of. And she said, yes. And she said, I think it's over there. And so we started walking toward it, and that was her car. And she stopped and she said, I had just prayed that God would help me. Oh, wow. And you walked up. Like, I couldn't believe that. Like, I've prayed and God's helped me before with people, but I've never been the answer to somebody's prayer before like that.
You have been now.
Blew me away. Yes. And then she ended up telling me her story and just more about her life, and gave me a hug when I took her cart back, got her situated in her car, was leaving. She yelled out her window that she said, I love you. And we had exchanged names, and she said, I love you, Kelly. And I said her name back and loved her too. Never saw her again, but I look for her car every time I go to that Walmart.
Wow.
Yeah, but like that tugged at my heart too, but we're so busy. Okay. I'll be short with what I loved about that I kept coming back to in this book. A good lesson was the one where his son, Anthony, is really wants to go into the Air Force. And so he does all of the things. And then I don't know if I should give away the story. Maybe I won't give away the story, but his friend ends up, well, I guess I can give away the story. It's just one of 100 stories in here. So the son Anthony does all these things to get in. He does the right things, but his scores just aren't quite high enough. His GPA is just a little under. It was a really competitive year that year, and so he didn't get in. And Tommy, the author, he talks with a longtime friend. Okay, he's a managing partner of one of the largest, most successful law firms in the Western U.S. So Tommy tells this guy that his son didn't get in, and but then he told him another story about the son. That the son missed a lunch with his dad, with Tommy, just canceled his lunch, but didn't give him a reason. And the reason was because the day before, the son had run into a homeless person in Colorado when they were going to do the interview, and asked if the homeless person needed something. And he did. And so the son, Anthony, went to the store and bought a shaving kit and food and some things. So he missed the flight with his dad the lunch with his dad, because he was getting things that and going to meet the homeless person to help that person. But he never told his dad that story. So the mom told the dad the story. And then Tommy told the friend that had all the connections, the powerful lawyer. And that lawyer said, well, I'm going to call somebody about this. And he did not end up getting into the Air Force Academy. But a few months later, he received a letter that he was nominated by a senator to get into West Point. And so the take home to me was about doing the right thing, and you don't tell people. And then that when you get turned down from something, have faith that something bigger is coming. Yeah. Something that's a bigger, better fit for you is coming. And I certainly have lots of examples of that in my life. And that was one story that just resonated with me because of all those examples. And it's when you get turned down by something and you have faith that something better is coming along, that's better for your life, that rejection or pain or whatever just doesn't affect you that much. So that's why that hit home to me.
I like it.
All right, Bret, you want to share one more, and then we're already at half an hour, so we need
to. Yeah, I'll grab it real quick. So yeah. The first I that Spaulding writes about, Kelly mentioned, is interest. And the chapters, everybody has a story, as Dave mentioned. So when I thought of that, I thought of the E in the 5 Graces of Leadership, which we covered under Gary Byrnes. And the reason that this kind of hit home for me, I'm terrible at this. I am the worst at taking time to say, what is your story? I am absolutely the worst. So it's a blind spot for me. It's a gap, high five that I've got some level of emotional intelligence and social self-awareness, but I'm terrible at it. So case in point, I've got this lady in the office the other day, and she's talking to me about business things, and I'm sitting down and she's standing, and I thought, you know what, sit down for a minute. And so she sits down, and we talked a little bit for business, and then it went on to about Christmas and her family and her grandkids and shopping and all of those things. And I did none of the talking and just listened. And I thought, that was, it took 20 minutes out of my day, which, probably some of the best time that I could have invested. And then that person obviously felt heard. And as I move up in the food chain, so to speak, if you want to think of it that way, more and more often, I think people's frustration is not so much that they want to get paid more. We all want to get paid more, or they want a different title. They just want to be heard. Mm-hmm. And they want to be heard by somebody, in a position of authority, in a position of leadership. So mm-hmm. just simply saying, what is your story? Can I spend some time with you? Tell me what's bothering you. That it doesn't really cost us as leaders anything, but the value that it returns to those that we're listening to, or those that are sharing their story, I think is priceless. So again, very similar to what Dave had. And again, I had a kind of chuckle. So Kelly always asks us what we think of the books. And as I was preparing, I said, Siskel and Ebert have a thumbs up and a thumbs down. They don't have a thumb sideways, but if they did, I think that's what I would give this one. So I said, this book to me is kind of like the rom-com of leadership books, right? Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy wins girl in the end. I mean, you pretty much knew what was coming. So it wasn't really as if there was anything earth-shattering or groundbreaking. And I always think to myself, if I had a choice between, binging on Netflix or scrolling social media or reading The Gift of Influence, let's skip the first 2 and focus on the last one. I think there's a lot of value in positive messaging, positive themes, positive environment. And I think that's really where The Gift of Influence probably hit me the best, is that, there's a lot of positive vibes that you get out of a book like this.
Yeah, right on. Dave, how about you? General thoughts, and would you recommend it?
I would definitely recommend it. I kind of compare it to, I agree with Bret on a lot of fronts that, there wasn't necessarily a ton of overwhelming, like, new research, new compelling ideas. A lot of it, how to be a good human. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was just kind of refreshing. And I compare it to, you come back from, that vacation, right? So my family and I always go on a vacation over Christmas because wife and I are both educators and I have a daughter in school. So that's when we're all, quote, out. So we always go on a vacation, and, I always come back refreshed, after a little time off, a new semester, things are starting fresh again. That book kind of did the same thing for me, where it's just kind of a refresher, right? Or a reminder, right? No one's going to argue that you shouldn't get to know people better, take the time to get the story, but, oh, hey, yeah, he's done it, and here's the impact it's had on his life. So yeah, I definitely recommend the book. Good book.
Yeah, I felt the same way too as both of you, the positive energy and positive vibe. And I didn't feel the need for a bunch of research to back it up, because it made sense. It's kind of common sense and reinforced. And I liked his stories. And while he does share a lot of the good things that he's done, he also shared mistakes that he's made and some of the struggles too. So I really appreciated that as well. And so I would give it 1 thumbs up. I don't know about 2, but at least 1. Well, let's wrap up our year together. So in 2023, we did our leadership book of the month 11 times this year. And so there's the link to the page where you can see all of the books that were selected. And the 3 of us talked the other day in our pregame about, let's each just pick one and share a point or so from it. And I think in general, we felt similar throughout the year about the books. And also, I did think it was funny, this one today's mentioned Marshall Goldsmith, who we did last year. And then I did his The Earned Life workbook. And then some of the concepts are similar to, like you mentioned, Indra Nooyi's and some of the other books too. So all these books we do, they keep coming back.
They do.
Yeah. Okay, Bret, you want to go first this time?
Sure. So I picked Jocko Willnick's Extreme Ownership. So one of my criteria, if a book really hits home with me, if it resonates, if it finds what I call a gravity, is whether or not I quote the book. Pretty simple, right? If I can read a book and I put it back on the shelf and I don't refer to it, I don't quote it, probably didn't resonate with me quite as much. So I can say with 100% confidence, with extreme ownership, I quote that at least weekly. And typically I'll tee it up like this. I'll say Extreme Ownership 101, leadership is about what you'll tolerate. And that's just one little section of that book. And if I look back on all the books, we did 11, I kind of felt like there was a short list of 5. And what I'm, you guys know I'm a veteran, right? We had a thing in the military called foot stompers. So of the 11, I think 5 of them are foot stompers. The other ones, worthy of some level of honorable mention. So recall the principle of social proof. For those of you that have been with us since the very first book, our very first one was psychology, or influence the psychology of persuasion. And one of those concepts, there were 6 principles. One of those was called social proof. And social proof is the idea that you will invest time and energy in something where some third party, we're obviously that third party, has validated that that time is worth your investment. So of the books we've read this year, I'm going to tell you that 5 of them are foot stompers. So the point there, we don't hit home runs on every one. So I'm going to say that, we hit home runs on 5 of the 11. And, I won't tell you which ones are which, but even we kind of swing and miss once in a while. So that's my favorite book of the year.
Well, we hit home runs. It's not our fault if the book sucks. Well, no, we get something out of every book, even if it's not one we end up recommending. So they don't all make my list of favorites. So Dave, what about you?
Yeah. So first off, I got a shout out here to Kurt that's on with us. And he said he appreciated the tip on the Alexa audiobook clip. So he said he's an Audible user as well. So glad I was able to add some insight there. So thanks for that comment, Kurt. Thanks for joining us. So if for me, the one Bret mentioned was definitely very high on my list as well. But kind of the one that won out was the one from last month, Wisdom of the Bullfrog. And there were a lot of really great lessons in that book. But the one that probably really just grabbed me, that I just always admire with leaders, is his philosophy on leading from the front. And he told several different stories about, kind of how he did that. And it took me all the way back to, when I was in middle school. I remember we got a new principal, and there was in the middle of the semester, which was odd. And it was always a challenge you had a couple different lunch shifts that, we were in the last lunch shift, and we never could get lunch on time and get eaten and get back to class. And we were coming back to class late, and the principal's trying to figure out what's going on and starts asking questions. And finally, like, well, sir, we don't have enough time to eat. So rather than throwing down some mandate, he goes into the cafeteria and starts trying to figure out what's going on. And the short version was they were understaffed. And they said, we just don't have enough people to prep lunch for the next crew and then also get the tables cleaned off, ready to go. So, instead of taking the approach a lot of leaders would do, we'll try to get more funding, and I need you to hang tight till next year. Hey, we're all suffering right now. What does he do? Every single day for the rest of the school year, he was in the cafeteria cleaning off tables himself. And I went, wow, this is the principal of the school. And he's in there doing that. And, as time has gone by, as I see leaders that aren't afraid to, pick up a shovel, so to speak, and jump into the fray and help out, they don't hide behind that. I'm the VP, I'm the CEO. If it needs to be done, I'm going to get it done. And there's, of course, a parallel to that in the book this month as well, when he told the story about his friend that was the big shot banker, and the truck broke down full of frozen fish in front of the bank. And he said, that loaded up in my car. We're going to go deliver this. So that guy's probably still telling that story. Yeah, the banker came out and helped me deliver fish. So yeah, Wisdom of the Bullfrog, big win for me. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like that one too. Okay, my favorite was the one we've mentioned, Indra Nooyi, My Life in Full. And I found that was one I've recommended a lot. I recommended Wisdom of the Bullfrog a few times as well. But I liked this because she shares her personal experience being an immigrant from India, and she was one of the first women CEOs in the Fortune 500. Excuse me. She's a really great example of carving out her career and managing that, owning her career, advocating for herself. And I think that applies to men and women. So sometimes serious leadership books like that can be too geared toward male personalities or male experiences, or even the military. So I liked that this applies to both. And that the success of Pepsi was 80% increase in revenue during her 12 years as a leader. So she was all of those things, cared about people. Remember, she wrote letters to the parents of her employees. Mm-hmm. She wrote 300 letters to her people who reported up to her, to their families. So she did all those good things, was all about purpose and vision, and also was successful. So this isn't all fluffy, all those things. So I really appreciated that. So that concludes our leadership book of the month for 2023. So what do we have on tap for 2024?
All right, I get to tee that one up. I got our January book, The Power of Regret by Dan Pink, and that date is January 25th. So we get a little bit of a holiday break here with Christmas, New Year's, and all of that. So it'll be a couple of weeks until we're back together. So our author, Dan Pink, had several positions in government and politics. You know, one of the things that we've tried to focus on as a team is picking authors who have actually had some time in the industry versus those that have just simply been consultants and authors. And he did. He was in the Beltway. The one that I found most interesting was he was the chief speechwriter for Vice President Al Gore. So if you've ever known anybody who's worked in the Beltway, they have phenomenal stories. And I've known a couple and find their things just absolutely fascinating. So the book is based on a survey of 15,000 people in 105 different countries. And what he found is he grouped the responses into 4 different regrets. Now, I haven't read the book yet because I dig into that, but just as I went through the pre-read, my mind kept going to this idea of, hey, being able to understand what those regrets are and then potentially avoid them. And then I kept going back to that quote, right? Those that fail to study history are doomed to repeat it. So, yep, as Kelly said, kind of brings us to the end of 2023. And I've referenced a couple of them in our conversation. So I'll be taking my personal inventory, figuring out what I accomplished this year and maybe what I left on the table undone. I call that my personal postmortem. And then obviously the most important part is having vision casting for 2024 to lay out an aggressive agenda and plan, and look forward to being a partner on that journey as we continue our conversations on leadership and personal development. So,
yeah, right on. Yeah, that'll be good. And he talked about regret in this book today as well. The gift of influence. Dave, any last thoughts for the whole year?
No, it's been a great year. Yeah, we've read some just amazing books. Read some that we're just kind of okay with, but as we alluded to, you get something out of every book. So it's been great spending this time with you guys every month, and looking forward to another year.
Yeah, right on. So the website that I had up will have the schedule for 24. The first quarter books are already up there, and we'll be back on the fourth Thursday of each month until November of next year. So we look forward to seeing everyone then. Thank you for sharing your leadership journey with us, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year. Happy holidays and end of the year to everyone. See you soon.
I want to wish you guys Merry Christmas and thank you both, for doing life with me is how I look at it. Being there as an accountability partner, I would tell you that I'm better for having to take in the journey with you. And then my note to everybody that I always like to end with is keep investing in yourself. It's the best investment you'll ever make.
Yep.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, thank you both.
Thanks, guys.
Here's to 2024 coming soon.